All right, guys, today you have to stick around for this reading. We are going to be tracking the king or kings of Judah that seem to be doing okay, as well as the kings of Israel that seem to be doing not okay at all. I think there are like 2 kings in Judah, and then there's like 500 kings in Israel every other month or something.
6.
Today we are looking at 2 Kings 15 as well as 2 Chronicles 26. You should stick around for the reading. As we're reading over these chapters, what do you think?
I definitely noticed the same things you were talking about earlier. It's just like bad king after bad king after bad king for Israel. Like there was one that I even feel like we read about. Yeah. Shallum, Shallum.
Yeah.
Okay. I heard this and I was just like, oh man, like their turnover rate is quite insane. But this guy said
Their turnover rate.
he said it says about him, he reigned 1 month.
1 month. We're now measuring kingdoms in months.
Yeah, like that is crazy. It's kind of like those like celebrity marriages, you know? Like that's what it reminds me of.
Oh my goodness.
Like keeping track to see how long it's going to last. But it's crazy. Like, so we're kind of establishing some good guys going here in Judah. But unfortunately, like the rest of God's people, they're just like, they're falling to the wayside.
The northern kingdom of Israel is just like struck with chaos, it seems like.
But what is bringing that on? Like, what are the things that, is it just like, just super poor leadership that just keeps following after bad things? Like,
so the kind of the key theme in Kings and Chronicles is that the Lord prospered men who obeyed the Lord. And the Lord brought chaos to men and kingdoms who did not fear the Lord. And so, like, we could talk about that theme every single day. But you see here in Israel that there have been some assassinations that we've read about. But here in one chapter, there's what, like 4 or 5 assassinations?
Well, I have a question, though.
Yeah.
So, like, in the past, there have been a lot of instances of prophets coming in and saying, you're the king, you're the next one, right? There have been many instances
like being anointed.
But it's not always the case. Why is that a thing?
Well, a lot of time, the overarching covenant is that God is going to be faithful to David's
line, right.
And that is happening in Judah, and the text even calls that out sometimes. That's why it calls out specifically like he slept with his fathers, like he walked like his father David. You'll notice that in Israel, a lot of times what the text calls out is that they did the same things as their father Jeroboam, the son of Nebat. And so that is like almost like an establishing shot that is like, this is wicked. This wickedness started with Jeroboam all the way back when he split off from Solomon, and it is remaining to this day. There's brief little glimpses of like, well, maybe they're going to listen to the Lord. And then it's like, no, they're not. And there is chaos because of it. There's a lot of death. I mean, here in like I was saying, in one chapter in 2 Kings, 15, there are so many assassinations, just one group of people rising up and killing off the king. You can only do that when your nation is weak to begin with. By contrast, you can see that in 2 Chronicles, Uzziah is growing in fame and growing in people who are fearing him because he is a powerful king. So because he's a powerful king, he has a little bit more protection. People are more in favor of him. You get the feeling that there is some kind of peace in Judah, but relative chaos in Israel.
Well, it's interesting, too. Every time they mention a new king in Israel, it like the very first sentence is, well, in this year of the king of Judah's rule, this person started taking over. However, it's interesting that crazy guy, Shallum, it says he began to reign in the 39th year of Uzziah. So why do they keep flipping back and forth between?
Well, they're measuring off of Uzziah because he was king.
Well, no, they're measuring off of Azariah and for all the other ones.
Oh, okay.
Uzziah just kind of flops in between.
Well, Uzziah, they probably switched to who was king then, maybe.
Yeah, but why would they go out of order? That's kind of weird.
I'm not sure. We are getting close, just so you all know. The northern kingdom is going to be carried into exile in 722. And that's
Israel.
Correct. The last king that we read about today in 2 Kings in Israel was Pekah. And Pekah, there's only
Pekah.
There's only one more king after him. So Pekah, he reigned from about 740 BC to 732 BC, and they were carried into exile in 722. So there's only 10 years left of the northern kingdom of Israel.
Yikes. Well, I mean, it shows. It's kind of like, okay,
well, yeah,
just like,
I think,
be done with it already.
I do think that relative chaos, they're getting weaker and weaker. They are destroying their own leaders.
They're destroying their own people. That Shallum guy's like ripping open pregnant women.
Yep.
Like, what the world?
Yep.
What is happening?
And very soon, Syria is just going to be like, all right, we're getting these jokers out of here. We're taking this over.
Mm-hmm.
So the northern kingdom basically ends in 722, and 2 Kings 15 takes us almost to 732. So there's only a 10-year window left. The southern kingdom in Judah sticks around till 586. So there's going to come a point in the text here where we follow, like, Israel is carried away. They don't exist anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And Judah is continuing on.
Exile.
Yeah. So with all that being said, there is some interesting things going on in Judah at the same time. They are, like, pretty clear opposites. Like, Israel is really struggling. Yeah. Judah seems to be prospering.
And Judah is, like, one of the tribes, right?
It's
is that how
kind of
two?
Out? It's kind of two, because it's Benjamin is sort of there, but Benjamin is sort of shaky because of what happened at the end of Judges.
But if you think about that, that's so crazy. That's 2 of the 12.
Correct.
The rest are all just completely fallen. That's so nuts.
Yep.
Oh man. Anyway, so we get to 2 Chronicles 26, and we dig a lot more deeply than we have for other kings into Uzziah and his reign. And so it starts off really strong. It's like, dang, this is really great. I'm a little like concerned with the fact that he's a 16-year-old king. I don't know what it is with all these really young kings, but we'll go with it. So he's 16 years old. He takes the throne, and he's actually like, he becomes super prosperous. He's like very strong. He's making a lot of like military decisions that are epic.
He also had a very key, like, faithful advisor in Zechariah.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see in chapter 26, verse 5, he set himself to seek God in the days of Zechariah, who instructed him in the fear of God. As long as he sought the Lord, God made him prosper. It's very similar to Jehoiada and Joash.
Yeah, I was just going to say that reminds me of those 2 J names.
Mm-hmm.
But what's cool about this, excuse me, is that this reminds me, like, it gives me a lot of David vibes. Like, I'm feeling like we're doing some callbacks to, like, God is just allowing David to overcome all these foes. And that's exactly what's happening with Uzziah. Verse 7 of chapter 26 says, God helped against the Philistines and against the Arabians. Even verse 8, the Ammonites paid tribute to him, and his fame spread all the way to the borders of Egypt, and he became very strong. So, like, he is well known to be like this super prosperous king. And it's exciting, and it feels like, okay, good. They're like on the right track. And then you read the little subtitle that's been added in verse 16, and it says Uzziah's pride and punishment. And it's just like, oh, man, I thought we were doing really well. And I mean, I guess like humanity, it is what it is, but it's such a shame that like pride is what ends up killing this guy. Like, and literally.
It's no small thing. He marches into the holiest part of the temple, and the priests have to like form an army against him to keep him out.
The whole time I'm just thinking, stay in your lane, dude. Just stay in your lane. You are not a priest.
So it is a wild shift. Like, you need to keep in mind that this text makes it seem like just one day he woke up and decided to be prideful. Right. But I'm sure it was a slow descent. I mean, what is interesting, and we've seen this over and over and over, and it probably is really applicable to our lives today, the more successes you have, the more fame that you gain, the more susceptible you become to pride, which causes you to do very strange things.
Right. And I think the key word in the verse where it like kind of alludes to this new like turn of events for Uzziah is in verse 16, it says, he grew proud. So this is like an ongoing thing. Like, he became strong and he grew proud. So like, that wasn't just something like you said that just like switched off and on. You start to like do weird things. You like think of yourself in like different ways, and like to the point where God literally said, these men are going to be my priests on whom like they will like take the responsibility to come into the tabernacle, or well, the temple, I guess,
the temple at this point, yeah.
To do the work of like the priests, and that is no one else's job but theirs, and there are consequences for those who do otherwise. And he's just like, well, whatever, like, I don't really care, God, I'm just gonna do what I want because I'm the best. And the pride really did unfortunately go to his head.
I'd love to know the finer details of what caused him to think he should do this.
Yeah, I mean, how many times do people fall into these types of scenarios where pride just like completely consumes them?
And I would think he would be aware of some of those older stories. I think about Nadab and Abihu that offered strange fire to the Lord. They were priests, but the way that they were offering fire was bizarre, and God literally killed them on the spot.
Well, what's also crazy about this too is if you look at verse 19, it says, then Uzziah was angry. So he became angry because the priests are coming in after him saying, you need to get out of here.
Well, the authority is going to his head for sure.
I think what's interesting is that only in that moment when he became angry with the priests, so like the king who was put in charge of the people is angry with people who are being obedient to God. So like that weird like power or authority trip is what like God actually became angry with him then. I was like, no, you're not going to treat my people who are obeying me in this way because you are like over them in power. And that is the moment where leprosy just like forms on his forehead.
Feels like a Indiana Jones moment.
Yeah, it's so weird. But it makes a lot of sense though too. Like you can't just abuse power because you feel like you are better than everybody else, including God.
What's interesting is that the leprosy causes him to have to live outside the house. Mm-hmm. And so God literally cut him off from his presence.
Yep.
And then there's like a prime minister that raises up in his place because he's not able to be a king anymore because he can't be around people.
Jotham, his son.
Yeah. So, man, pride comes before a fall. This dude goes marching into the temple, and literally quickly after that very terrible decision, he's not a king anymore. And he's living in some kind of side house that,
That's a bummer.
I think the last person that had to be hidden in a side house, wasn't that like the Queen of Sheba or something? Or no, it was Solomon's Egyptian wife.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
She couldn't live in the house of the Lord.
She was.
So here in Judah, actually. So as far as your parts for today, Jenny, what do you have for us?
I think Uzziah's situation is definitely what we need to really take away from this, because pride is not unique to people who have like immense amounts of authority and control over situations. Like that can happen to anybody, in like small ways, in like day-to-day, whatever kind of relationships you have with other people. And it can happen, obviously, to people who have a lot of power and authority. So I think pride is one of those things that we talk about a lot, but if unchecked, it can be a really terrible, awful, just kind of rut to get in, to the point where, like the Lord is literally punishing Uzziah for this. So I would say today, just like really check your heart for any situations that you may come into today where pride could potentially just sneak in, and potentially just like grow into something that would be like pretty terrible in the long run. So just like really check your heart. Remember this story today, and hopefully it encourages you to kind of overcome those situations and really humble yourself for what the Lord would like to do in your life, when you have your eyes fully fixed on Him and not yourself. So thanks for joining us. We will see you back again tomorrow.
Thanks so much for listening to God's Plan, Your Part. If anything stuck out to you, if you have any questions, or if you'd like to receive a Bible, you can email us at godsplанyourpart@gmail.com. Also, if you're enjoying the podcast, please consider supporting us through the link in our description. We love that you're on this journey with us, and we hope you have a great day. See you tomorrow.